Okay, here we go. Hey folks, my name is Jessica Mashkovich and this is One Take with Jess. My guest today is LEVINE. Hey Allie.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I always do that. Like I introduce someone's name and then I'm like, hey name. And
I love it. You're
there's
like,
no
it's one
context.
take. It's one simple thing. Here we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. When someone hears their name, they're like, what? Who, me? Hi. Yeah. So I don't want to leave anyone
Especially as a
hanging.
mom, right? It's like you're always called mom or mama or whatever. It's like, oh, that's my name. That's right. That's my name.
We all turn our heads like, yeah, me? No, different mom. Oh, okay. But yeah, I'm so happy that you're here with me today. I will describe you to put things in context. You are, you're a Hollywood mom. Yay. Celebrity stylist, influencer, Bravo TV reality star, or reality TV star, I should say. And oh my gosh, we're definitely going to talk about that one. You are brave. Brave is the whole Bravo part of the Bravo network, is being brave.
True.
Yeah, so thank you for being on with me today. You and I know each other from the Throwbie. You actually did some, I don't know if you call it influencer or ambassador type.
Influencer work. And I had it on an amazing TV segment and wore it and shared it on campaign on my social. My husband actually wears his like pretty much every other day. He's walking around in it. Like he gets home from golf and he just wants to be cozy. It's what he throws on. Like he loves it.
I love it. That was what it was intended to be. So that's perfect.
It's awesome.
But you were an East Coast girl before you went out to California, right? Tell me a little bit about how you ended up on the other side of the country and all the great things that you're doing.
Sure. So I'm originally from New York. I moved out here over a decade ago. And I was working in New York in fashion. Of course, for those that know me and know my, story, if you don't know my journey, I have always loved fashion. I've always been in fashion, studied fashion in school. And I was, I went out to California to further into red carpet and styling and that world, because when I was working in New York, I worked in corporate design. And then I moved into the entertainment industry as a production assistant in movies. And I got some incredible experience, worked on a bunch of different movies and TV shows like 30 Rock. And my first movie was Wall Street Money Never Sleeps with the famous Oliver Stone. And I got incredible experience, but I didn't realize, like, I didn't know what styling was. Styling wasn't a term back then that was like known. Rachel Zoe didn't have her show. It wasn't something that was out there. It was like very much like a newer term. So I had no idea that I wanted to do that, be in, that career path. It was very much just like, I want fashion. Fashion is my passion. Like I always felt that way since I was a young girl. And so I went and worked on a movie in Atlanta, Big Mama's House, and the costume team was from Los Angeles. And they were like, what are you doing in New York?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm from there. That's where I live. Like, I live right outside the city, in Hoboken. I lived in New York City. I was like, so this is where I've always been. And they were like, well, if you want more of like the everyday trending lifestyle and the, red carpet and the more just glamorous side of things, you need to be in LA. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I started kind of exploring and doing my research. And they turned to me halfway through our, film, and they were like, look, we love you. We think you're incredible. I have to say, the costume team there was just amazing. I have to shout them out because they really helped lead my career. Leah Ketch-Nelson, Scott O'Leary, and Amanda Riley were the costume design team for Big Mama's House. And they became like mentors to me. And they were like, look, if you want to go to LA, we will help you get in the costume house. We'll help you get your union hours. We will help set you up. I know, right? Like,
honestly, that's like the moment that people are waiting for. Like, how did you even find yourself on the set of a movie you said you were working in corporate in New York. What was that first moment that like all of a sudden you found yourself even on a movie set doing that? And then those people that you mentioned really did path your entire life. I mean, I hope you send them a card every now and then, just like you made such an impact in my life.
I'm always mentioning them and like all my interviews and reach out to them, and they're incredible human beings.
That's like valuable people mentors.
Yeah, truly mentors.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah, they absolutely are. And so from corporate, basically, I didn't plan on leaving the corporate world. I actually felt like I had really found my footing in design. I wasn't necessarily like thrilled with everything I was doing, but I felt like I'm progressing into what I want to do. And I was loving design and product development. And I felt like, okay, in 5 years, I'll be the head of one of these departments. And that was really how I felt in the trajectory I was on. And then the stock market crashed. And that was, oh gosh, dating
That was
myself.
2000. Was that the bubble?
I think something around there.
Mm-hmm.
And it crashed completely. And it was like, there were no jobs, and they let go of, I was at Coach at that point, and they let go of our entire team at Coach. And so I literally was forced, I believe, by the universe to be like, oh, hey, you don't have a job anymore. Like, you don't have a, career right now. So what are you going to do? And so I, of course, at first I was devastated, and I had a really hard time, like, realizing that I wasn't going to be able to do design, and I wasn't going to be, in the positions I'd been before. And so once I kind of got over the initial shock, I moved home because I couldn't afford my apartment, outside of New York City anymore, in Hoboken. And I went home and I started kind of trying to figure out all over again, like, how I'm going to save money. What am I going to do? How am I going to start over? And that was hard for me because I had finally gotten out of the house. I had worked in retail to get out, of the house when I was working for Target as an executive. And that was a really high position at a young age as well. And I was an executive, of management of their team, and opened a flagship store in New York. And so I got moved out of my parents' house, saved up money, got into an apartment, in the city, all of that. And then, I fast forward, I get into corporate, I'm doing design, I'm finally finding my footing and what I want to do. And then boom, stock market crashes. And it was like, just kidding.
Sometimes that has to happen for you to continue changing, like what your priorities are. So it sounds
so true.
Yeah,
it's so true. And of course, in that moment, I didn't feel that way. I was devastated. But now back, I'm like, oh, I get why that happened to me, because I wouldn't probably be what I've been doing now, or what I've been doing for all these years. So fast forward to that happening, then, kind of starting all over again. I started reaching out to different contacts I had, friends, family, just different people, saying like, hey, I have fashion experience, but I don't know what I should do now. I've always thought about exploring more of the entertainment side, but I'm not sure what that would even be. And, I did have, different connections in the business through family. And I said, can someone get me an interview or a meeting or something, to just, get myself in front of somebody. And so I got a few different meetings, as far as, with Oliver Stone's team, to work on this movie.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible. And, his team let me know, like, hey, everything you've done at work is not going to be what this is here. It's going to very much be like, you're going to be running, getting donuts and coffee and whatever basically bitch work we need you to do, like, you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there in the meeting and being like, okay, like, I'll do it. I just want a job. I just want to work. Like, I don't care. Just give me something. So I feel like in this moment I have purpose, and I feel like I can keep, working my way up and doing what I need to do. And I really had no idea how hard that job was going to be. It was probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever had. First off, working for someone like Oliver Stone, he's incredible and such an amazing man, but holy crap, is he hard to work for. And that was definitely
why?
Why? Oh my God, he's a perfectionist, like on all levels, and he's crazy. I mean, he's brilliant, but he's crazy. He knows he's crazy. So it was just very much like, he would call me at 4 a.m. and say, be at set in half an hour, and bring, my coffee with this, all the instructions, no whip, no this. And the advisor wants this and wants that. And I remember one of the first days I got there and I brought the coffees to the set, and 2 of them were wrong. And he looked at me and he goes, do you take this job seriously? And I said, yes, of course I do. And he said, well, the coffees aren't correct. So what are you going to do about it? And I looked at him like, oh my gosh, I remember in that moment still now, like being like, oh my gosh, like I told them what it was. And, and he looked at me and was like, well, they're not correct. And I was like, and I just kind of looked at him and he looked at me like, what are you going to do about it? And so I race off set, and I run back to the coffee place. I'm bawling my eyes out at the Starbucks, and they're like, okay. And so they changed the coffee for me. But, you know, they only give you a certain amount of like, you know, money to go and do what you have to do on your job. You know, it's like your, you know, the PC that they give you. So once you use that, like, that's it. So I would have to use my own money because it was my mistake, essentially.
Right.
So I remember when I was crying, they're like, just take it. They didn't charge me. And I run back and I give it to him and he's like, okay, you know, good job. You know, thank you for correcting this. But that moment from then on stuck out in my mind, always about like double checking everything and being accountable. Cause I easily could have just blamed the people at Starbucks because technically they made it wrong, but it was my responsibility to get it to set, to give it to the people who were in charge and to make sure it was what they wanted. And it was none of those things. So I think like in that moment, I really like started learning like, wow, this is going to be a whole new level of accountability. This is way more intense than it was in corporate. They're going to give me a lot more things that are challenging. And they did. Like every day was a challenge for me. It was like, you know, go find this in, you know, the city. We need, you know, this type of button when, you know, for this. And it was like run around all over these places and nobody knew where anything was, but it was like, just go find it. Like basically just, you know, go on this hunt for this, you know, and it was like, but it was expected for you to figure it out. And you were to manage yourself and figure it out and handle it and then come back to set and deliver what they'd ask for. And that was a constant on that set, no matter what I was doing, whether I was cutting scripts and they needed 400 scripts. I remember one night they needed by like 10 o'clock at night and it needed to be all cut and all stamped and all perfect. And like nobody was open. And I had to like go find like the only Staples outside of the city, like take the bus, get outside to New Jersey, get them cut, get them done, get back to the city before everybody was wrapped. I mean, it was like, I just remember being like, oh my God, I don't know if I could do this job. Like it was so intense.
And you wouldn't think it. You would think that you would just be going down to the corner block to be getting coffee all day and all night. And yet these were like life challenges. They were treasure hunts. They were, you know, testing every bit of everything that you're going to use actually in your future business life. So, I mean, that's
so true. Yeah. It was so,
think.
Yeah, it was so intense and so not what I thought.
Were people not nice or were people always cordial? I mean, I'm only saying this because of the whole sensitivity of the current freaking environment we live in. Not everyone says please and thank you and
no,
and everything.
The things that happen
are so easily offended, you know, and so easily.
Yeah, I was going to say people, I guess with the current culture or whatever, people probably like would be in trouble nowadays, I would imagine, because no, they weren't, because it was just very much like, you're going to do this because that's your job. And I'm not necessarily going to be the nicest about it. I'm not necessarily going to worry about your feelings because it's your job. Like, you know, and to their defense, like it was my job. Like it wasn't their job to manage my feelings. It was their job to tell me what to do to get things done, to get to the next step, you know? And so that was what I did, whether my feelings were hurt at times or not, you know, and that was part of my growth for me, at least.
Right. And you had someone, if you had a teenager that was going into the work world, what would you advise them instead of like watching the TikToks and watching all of the people, you know, with how they behave in the current business world? It sounds like you would basically say, you know, put on your big,
I would tell them that they have to
do what you're told.
Yeah, you have to work hard. Yeah, I would tell them you have to work hard and, you know, you need to be focused and held accountable and have a good attitude no matter what. Show up smiling to work. There were days where it was 4 a.m. I had worked 8 days in a row, no days off, 4 a.m. to like 9 o'clock at night. And I'd still show up with a smile on my face, even if I was exhausted of smiling and like, here I am, like the next day, you know, truly. Like I remember sometimes I felt like my smile was like stuck to my face because I was like, I'm just smiling so much because I want to go to sleep, you know. It's like, but you do what you have to do to show up, especially when you're young and you're hustling and you're grinding. Like you have to show that like you're there to do a job and you're going to do a good job, because then they want to keep using you and hiring you and moving you along. When you show up and you don't own your mistakes and you don't do what you're supposed to do, then why are you of value to them, you know? And so that was something that I learned very early on, was like, have a good attitude, persevere, fall and get back up, because you will fall a million times over, and keep learning and learn from your, you know, failures, and, you know, really be grateful for the things, like you said, that you're experiencing and the people that are teaching you and guiding you. Like I looked at all those people, as much as they were my bosses and they were really hard to work for, they were mentors in a lot of ways as well, because they taught me how to show up on a set. They taught me like what to do and not to do, you know, and they showed me hard work and, you know, how to have a strong work ethic. And I think I always had a strong work ethic in general because I watched my dad build his business from the ground up, and I watched him just work so hard in everything he did. And, when he would go and sell products, he would go door to door when I was super young and would just, do anything to make a sale. And it was just like really powerful to watch my dad do that at all hours of day and night, and then start his own business and grow it from the ground up, and all the things that he did. I think seeing that and being a part of that definitely put a lot of, work ethic in me, and also just like really empowered me to know that I could do the same. So I feel like I did get a lot of that from my dad, but then also too from all the experiences I've had of working for different people who aren't the nicest and who are difficult to work for. Even in styling, when I moved out to LA, and I, like I said, I worked with, Amanda Riley and, Leah Catch-Nelson. I worked on their movies, but then it was time to, of course, set me free, and have me go do my own thing. And I remember like trying to get all these different people to hire me for jobs. And I would call people, like I had a whole big book that I purchased from the costume union. It like basically is a directory to all the designers. And I remember that was like one of my first big investments in my career. And I wanted it so I could call and contact whoever. And I marked in that book, I would call 7 people a day, and I would mark it either as like they picked up, I left them a message, or there was just no contact whatsoever, And I remember like I called for months and months and months, and I finally got this one man, Albert, who's an incredible designer. He's passed now, but I went and sat down with him, and he invited me to his Hollywood home, this like stunning mansion in the hills. And I sat with him, and he looked at me and he goes, "Look, I just want to be upfront with you. Like, I have no connections anymore to like help you anywhere in the business. So like, if this is a waste of your time, like by all means, like I know you drove out here, like all these things, like don't feel like you have to stay." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "You're an incredible designer. You've been in the business for so long. Like, I don't care. I just want to hear, like, how did you do it? What did you do? Why were you inspired?" And we sat for like 2 hours and had tea. And he just like told me all about his, path and the industry. And like that alone to me was like a changing moment in my career, because it was like, okay, I got someone to say yes to me. I got someone to listen to me.
I swear, like what you're saying is giving me chills, and it's even like choking me up, because these are things that we hope, and we hope that someone will tell us their story, and we hope that they'll just engage and see our, our interests and our craziness and desire to do that same thing. And he's like, "I can't even offer you anything," but you're like, you know what, you're offering me your wisdom, and I'm just a sponge here to absorb it.
Offering me to sit with you. Like I'm just I'm just honored to just sit with you and get to be in your presence and hear about what, you've done and how you built your career. I think a lot of times, and I'm probably going to get hit for saying this, but whatever. I think a lot of times nowadays people, one, expect instant gratification and like instant something to happen. And 2, they expect someone to always like give to them. And it's not always like a give and take. Like it might be down the road, but it's not, you can't, in my opinion, you can't sign up for something and say, "I'm only going to do it so I get something back." Because that's not gratitude, and that's not, true reciprocation of, I believe, when it comes to the universe and your alignment. You're doing it because, you have the intention of hopefully moving yourself forward, or getting yourself a potential opportunity at some point, or putting yourself in front of someone so they maybe see themselves in you when they were younger, whatever it may be. But like your intention has to be pure. If your intention doesn't start out as pure, in my opinion, it's not going to go anywhere. And if it does, it's going to crash pretty soon. So, I believe that when you align with people and you connect with them wholeheartedly and you like build those relationships, that's where like I feel like my career, all the things I've done and continue to do, why I've been successful is because I continue to build my relationships. Like no matter what I'm doing, I always build. I mean, like even us, like we started out because you wanted to send me the Throwbie, and it was like, cool, let me try it. Let me like see what this is. And then I loved your product. So it was like, cool, I have this opportunity. Do you want to do this with me? And then like I did a TV segment, and then I shared it on my social, and then we've continued to stay in touch, and then you want to have me on your podcast. Like it's an ongoing relationship and synergy. And I think the more we build those relationships, especially as women, and as mothers, which I have a very soft spot for moms, especially being a new mom, like I just think there's so much power in that. And that you see so much more alignment and so much more growth in women that continue to do that for each other versus like, hey, I'm here. What are you going to do for me? And that was what I didn't want Albert to feel when I sat with him, when he said, I don't have anything for you. Like, you know, I feel bad you drove all the way out here. Like, I literally have nothing for you. And he had no idea that like that nothing, that 2 hours of tea was life-changing for me.
Yeah.
Like I got so much inspiration. Like I had such, you know what I mean? It was like, oh my gosh, like I learned so much in that moment. And like, it took me back to going home to going back to my book and being like, okay. And he gave me names of people to like, see if they'll answer. And most of them didn't. Like I have that book to this day. And there's probably like over maybe 1,000 names in there. Maybe 10 people ever got back to me. But you know what? It's still something, you know, and some of those people led to certain jobs. Some of those led to one-off, you know, meetings, but they all led me to somewhere, even if it was back to myself, to like figuring out what the next moves were to do and to be able to progress and evolve, you know? And so I think a lot of times like people see my career and they just think like, oh, it just happened, or, oh my gosh, isn't that amazing? And like, yes, it is amazing. And I'm so grateful for all of it. But like, blood, sweat, and tears went behind all of this and continue.
That's what this is all about, though. That's exactly what this is all about. So when people hear this, or even me hearing this, I don't even know who listens to this or doesn't listen to it. I know my mom does. So when my mom hears this,
I love it.
But this is exactly what people need to hear. They need to hear the fact that it didn't happen overnight. The fact that it wasn't just, you know, an uncle that placed you in the best place you could be. You didn't grow your following to like 1 million followers, you know, instantly. And then now you're just being handed cake to eat, you know, and like fill your soul. But it's hard work. It's still hard work, but yeah.
It's always hard work. Yeah. And now, I mean, as you know, also as a mother, like it's a whole new hard work for me because my girls are first, and then it's figuring out my career, my entrepreneurship in between those small minutes that I have and pockets of time and late nights that I stay up to get things done, and, you know, just figuring it out. And it's a whole new like exhaustion for me, but it's probably my most favorite as much as it's exhausting.
So after you went through that thick book and after this kind gentleman spoke to you and like kind of maybe had you shift gears or path or different perspective, what was the next moment that you felt like, okay, this is working? I mean, because obviously going through the book, that's like me trying to call buyers for the Throwbie. You just keep making phone calls. And eventually something might hit, but something might not hit either. So you have to like figure out what's the time frame. You hear a lot of actors saying that like their parents were giving them 1 more month to try and make it in the industry. And then all of a sudden, boom, they exploded, you know, and then they made it.
And I think that's
but there's like so many thousands more stories where people had to call it quits, and they might've been mega talented. They just didn't get that break.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's funny, like when you said that about like actors, because like, you know, of course we hear those stories because they're the ones that are in the quote unquote public eye. So that's what you're hearing and you're, you know, you're receiving. But like you said, there's thousands of stories, millions of stories out there, that's just not the case. But I also believe too, in my opinion and in my experience, that if you're truly aligned with something and you're meant for it and it's part of your purpose, no matter what, even if it takes a long time, even if you have to say goodbye to it and put it down for a moment, it will come back around and it will resurface itself because you're meant to do it. And so I do believe there are other things that are meant for us, some things we know, some things we don't know. And then we're put into those, you know, positions to continue to do that. And so I think that, you know, as far as myself, like even with styling, right? Like I became a mom and I went through heavy postpartum depression with my first daughter. I pretty much had to give up my celebrity styling because I couldn't show up for anybody, let alone myself. I couldn't, you know, do the things that I wanted to do. I could barely function, let alone like do my job. And so I kind of had to like put it on the side along with my social media in the beginning, because when I was in therapy and I had my postpartum specialist, you know, she turned to me in one of our sessions and she said, what's more important, you showing up online or you showing up for yourself? And that was like real deep. And I was like, myself. And she's like, well, it can't be a question mark. Like, is it for yourself or is it to show up for work? You know? And I was like, no, it's for myself. And she's like, okay, so.
But that is a trick question though, because you think that you're doing the social media in order to make it like, okay for yourself. Like I want to have a self, you know, propelling engine that I could like then sit back and then be able to tend to myself when I have my business like going. So every minute that you think you're showing up on social media, you're posting, you're doing this, you're like, I just want this for future success.
Exactly. Right. And so, and she was like, but it's right now, it's triggering you. Like we started realizing from my conversations and my therapy and my journaling, like a lot of my anxiety, a lot of my insecurities were coming from social media because I was seeing all these moms who were like brand new moms. Their bodies were like, you know, perfect after a week of having a baby. And they were so happy and they looked, you know, glam and fabulous. And their, you know, baby looks beautiful and everything's beautiful in their world. And I would just be like, oh my gosh, look at me. I'm a hot mess. I can't even get dressed. Amelia won't latch. Like, I'm so upset. Like, it was just a disaster. And I would look at this and compare and compare and compare, which is terrible. And it would really like destroy me on top of the fact that I was already like feeling just depressed in general without even realizing it. And so she was like, you need to sign off. And I remember that moment of like being told I really needed to like have accountability and sign off for my social. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, this is a huge part of like my career. And it's not even, of course, as strong as it is now, but it was still building and, you know, very much in my face every day that I needed to engage. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do if I do this? Like, if I lose this, like, I'm not going to have anything because I'm already not styling. Like, now what, you know? And it was almost like, in my opinion, I felt like the universe was telling me like everything has to be taken away from you right now for you to focus on yourself and like to find yourself again in motherhood and to like progress forward into the woman you're going to be. And in a sense, I felt like I basically like mourned the death of like the old Allie who existed before being a mom, before, you know, being in a space where I had to choose, you know, one or the other. It was always me just choosing my celebrity client or my project or whatever it was. I never had to make any other decisions. And I think the universe was like, no, you know, now you're going to have to really decide like your girls, your family, your husband, like all those things that are like most important. And then where is everything else going to fit? And it was a hard lesson for me because I fought it for quite some time. And I was just like, nope, I'll figure it out. I'll keep trying this. I'll keep trying that. And it was like, nope, nope, nope. No matter which door I opened, nothing was happening. So finally I signed off and I went offline for about 2.5 months. I went completely dark. And that was really hard for me because I was getting emails and text messages and all kinds of stuff. People saying like, you haven't posted, you haven't been on. What's going on? Like, why is there no content? You know, and it was like, I need to take a break, you know, and saying that I think in the industry of like, I need to take a break is a really big deal, which it honestly, in my opinion, shouldn't be, but like our society's made it out to be. And so that was really hard for me. And I remember like coming back to social media, you know, months later and wanting to post this like glam photo from a red carpet I had been at before everything had kind of like gone down in my world. And I went to post it and I went to like write a whole caption and I just sat there and I thought, no, I can't do this. Like, this isn't who I am anymore. Like, this isn't the same woman that like was showing up in the fluff and this and that it's not the same anymore. And that was a really hard realization for me as well. And so I went back through my phone. I started like looking through to see what I wanted to post. And I came across a picture of my body that I was like, oh, did not like, you know, of like right now. It's just terrible to say, but so true. And it was like, you know, a month after giving birth. And I remember like, I looked at it and I looked at another picture of me pregnant and I was so happy with like how glowy I was pregnant. And I had this beautiful bump and I'm looking at the two pictures and they're literally the same, except for the fact that I now have a baby and it's like a month later and I'm like horribly destroying myself over this photo. And that was my moment of like, okay, I'm going to post this. And I posted it and I wrote about, you know, the difference between the two and what I felt and the postpartum depression and this and that. And I remember sitting there and hitting, you know, post, and it felt like it took me like days to hit, you know, click the post. And after I did, I remember sitting there and just like feeling like I was hearing crickets because like there was no comments, there was no engagement, there was no likes. And like, it sounds terrible, but like that was what I was used to. And I just kept looking at it and I was like, oh my gosh, should I hit delete? What should I do? And I like walked away and I texted my, you know, postpartum specialist and I told her, and she was like, I saw it. I'm very proud of you. Like, I think that'll be very healing for you and really good for your process, regardless of what comes of it. And it took quite a few days for people to kind of like come and, you know, click and respond and this and that. And I had a lot of people unfollow me out of nowhere. Like my following literally started bleeding. I remember that my social media agency at the time, who was helping run my account, called me and said, what did you do over the last 72 hours? Because your account is bleeding. And I was like, that's literally the words they used. And I was like, bleeding? What do you mean? And they were like, your following is like dropping and dropping and dropping. And I was like, well, what are you asking me? And they were like, well, what happened? And I was like, well, I made some new posts. What are you? What?
I'm just looking for the stand for this,
Oh.
and I didn't mean to disrupt you. And
Hi, Justin.
That's why I was trying to stay over here, and I realized I got in camera. And
I'm like, also nice to have you. Sorry. Real life.
Is the camera stand over
here?
here?
No, I don't have it, honey. You left it upstairs.
I might have. Oh, she heard you.
Real mom life.
Listen, we are talking about like full candor, radical candor, full disclosure.
That's my husband, Justin. So I just remember them saying like, you know, it's bleeding. And I was like, what do you mean it's bleeding? And they're like, then like the count is really falling like the hundreds, like what is going on? And I was like, well, I shared a really personal like story and picture on my feed. So then they went and they were like, oh, they were like, well, this might be part of it. They're like, maybe we should take it down. And I was like, well, if you feel like I should. And then there was like this feeling inside of me that was like, no, you know what? Don't take it down. I was like, just leave it. And they're like, well, it might continue to mess with your engagement. I'm like, the algorithm may not favor you and you may fall a little bit. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what to say, but I just don't feel right about taking it down. And so in that moment, I kind of felt like the universe was like testing me to see, like, are you going to go back to like what you were doing? Or are you going to like push forward regardless of this may be something that might feel very detrimental right now, but may actually move you, you know, forward. And it did, it catapulted me forward, but I would have never known that had I taken it down in that moment. And I stuck it out. And after several days, maybe actually it was even maybe a week, all of a sudden, all these moms start messaging me and they're like, thank you for sharing your story. I never even knew who you were. And I found you. And I'm literally
again. Look at this. I don't know if
I got goosebumps. I love it.
Like goosebumps.
It was like, it was incredible. Like all these moms were reaching out and sharing their stories. And some moms were telling me that, you know, they had gone through postpartum depression, didn't even know. And then hearing my story. And it was like, all of a sudden, all those people had stopped following me that weren't really meant to continue in my new path anyways, but I didn't realize that. All these new women came around me. My following all of a sudden starts jumping. It was honestly the most wild thing ever because it was like, all this following had gone down. I had all this engagement crash. And then within 6 months of that post, things were going viral. My posts were changing. My engagement was going crazy. People were reposting on all these mom boards. And it was like, whoa, what just
Yeah. You know what? When we start thinking of these things in like real life occurrences, like say, for example, you're just like in a car and you're going straight ahead and then you decide that you have to make a right. So you end up having to slow the car down in order to change the direction and you lose momentum, you lose speed, you lose whatever, but then you're off in a whole nother.
That's a good analogy. That's so true. Yeah.
You have to be willing to slow down because if not, you're going to go off the rails. But you know,
clearly, been there, done that. Yeah. It's true though, right? And you have to slow down and that momentum and stop and come to a halt. And it's so, it was so wild.
You touched into a whole different demographic. It's not necessarily because you became raw. It's because you became real and people were now like attaching to your story and to relating to it very greatly, but they were a different person. So people may have been like 18 years old or 22 years old. Now the ones that are following you are like 28 and 35 and, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It completely changed. Like my demographics completely changed and the following changed and the people. And it was so interesting because it's funny now when I look at some of my followers and some people are from like the beginning and they've said to me, like, I've loved watching your progress. I've loved watching your journey and you evolve. And then so many are new to me in the last few years. And they've said like, I only found you a couple of years ago. I'm new to following you, you know, and I'm like, it's so interesting how, like you said, there are some who fell off that were like, they were meant for me during that time, that season of my life. They wanted to see all the glam, all the celebrities I was around. And I'm like, that's great. It's just not here anymore, you know? And so it's like few.
I love how your social media people like went into a tizzy and they're like, no,
they totally
you're gonna mess with the algorithms. You're gonna mess. By the way, the algorithms.
That's their job, you know what I mean? But so they're like, oh my God, what's happening? I mean, they literally used the word bleeding. And I was like, what is happening? And it was like it was intense. I'm not gonna lie. I remember that moment being like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, what did I do? You know, it was like,
but you made another like important decision that you stuck with and for the benefit of your next stage in life. That's great.
Yeah. And it helped me move forward and, you know, evolve into all the things I'm doing now in my influencer space. And even with the TV segments opening up into motherhood and not just fashion. And, you know, it took me out of all these boxes. But I think it's funny when I look at my life and I look at my career path, how we were speaking about like the crash of the stock market that then moved me from, you know, corporate, you know, into entertainment, and then how almost like my own crash on social led me to this. Like, I feel like for me, I don't know, I have to like have a crash or I like, I'm working on that not being the case every time, but I feel like I've been learning, like the universe been teaching me, like you're going to fall hard, like on your ass. Like my girlfriend said to me, she was like, you know, you look at it this way, right? She like, the universe nudges you, gives you like a little, like, you know, flick, then it gives you a kick. And then once you don't listen, it takes this like medical 2x4 right to the head. You know, it's like, are you paying attention? You know? And I feel like for me, I've had quite a few of those to like kind of wake up to my own self and everything. And I'm grateful where I am now because I feel, even though it's still hard, I'm still always, you know, hustling and growing and evolving. I feel like I'm finally like very aware and awake to my own growth. And I'm very intentional about the things that I choose to do and what I spend my time on and what my why is and my purpose. And that sometimes can change, but I always come back to like my overall why and what I'm doing. And now it's like, because of the pandemic, once again, the world came to, obviously for everyone, came to a halt. But for me, like my styling is picked back up in the most cool way. I'm dressing people all over the world who are trying to figure out how to get back ready for work, who are working on their Zooms, who are doing this, who are doing that. I would have never done that before because I had all the, you know, celebrity stuff going on. Now I'm getting to work with all these amazing people, everyday people like ourselves who are like truly grateful for my help and expertise, who are like, I feel good in what I'm wearing. Like I would have never tried this, or you helped me shop my closet all over again. And now I'm going to wear this. And it's so cool because to me, it's like my why has always been like, you know, empowering and inspiring others to be themselves and to like really like, you know, own themselves. And I always say confidence is your best accessory. And I feel like when you help give those people confidence, I help transform them from the inside out. And so getting to be a part now of all these different people's lives all over the world because of this world changing and, you know, everything that's happened, it's like, wow, I would have also never gotten that opportunity had this not happened. So it's very interesting when you start to step into that mentality and you start to look for those silver linings, even in the heaviest stuff, and you become aware and intentional of what you're doing. And I feel like that's where I am now in my career.
Do you feel like you've achieved what you wanted to achieve and now it's just on like what's that thing on the car that you put on cruise control? Do you feel like you're on do you feel like you're on cruise control now?
No, I wish.
Oh, but you didn't hit what you want to aspire to. So you still have loftier business goals that you want to aspire to. Is that in terms of following? Is it in terms of I want to style this one person? I want to get to that person and I want to style them. Where's your goal? Is it in growing your population or is it in working with a particular person?
You know, it's funny. If you had asked me that question maybe a year or two ago, I feel like the ego side of me would have been like, yeah, I want to grow to 1 million followers and I want this and I want that. But now, especially because of like the world and we've all been through, I've had a real like change of just everything within me. And I feel like I just want to like help affect more and more people on a positive level, like whether that's hundreds, whether that's thousands, whether that's millions, like whatever is meant for me. I want my, you know, my influencer relationship and my fashion and styling and TV work to all really like come together in some beautiful marriage over the years and figure out how to further like help others in just every step of their lives with, you know, inspiring and, you know, feeling good in what they're wearing and feeling confident in just who they are as a person and tapping into their authentic selves. I've just that's all like really I feel like is my purpose now, you know, maybe it always was, but I didn't fully know that. And I feel like that's really like, it's not numbers for me. It's not, hey, I need to hit this many subscribers. It's for me, it's like, help guide me into what I'm supposed to be doing to continue to affect on a positive level, you know, all these different people and, you know, get to be a part of that, whether it's more of my podcast, you know, doing more with that, my social media, the TV segments, or if it's all combined. You know, I'm very grateful that I get to work in a lot of different areas now and I enjoy them all and love them all. And I just want to figure out how to further, you know, grow them and have other opportunities within them to be able to excel. So for me, it's really not a number or a specific, I must hit that, because it's funny when I think about like before I used to chase, like I wanted to be in Forbes so bad. And then, you know, I finally got interviewed by Forbes, or I wanted to be featured in the LA Times. And then, you know, years later, LA Times reached out. Like, I think about the things I like really, really wanted or thought were like meaningful to like have. And I fought so hard for them, right? Like I chased so hard, maybe I chased too hard. And then when I finally like let go and was just doing me and working on my career and moving forward, all these different, you know, people like Pop Sugar and Forbes and LA Times start reaching out on their own without me, you know, having to go chase or have my team go chase. And, you know, they still, of course, get me incredible opportunities, but things have come to me organically. And I believe that's because I've been in alignment of just doing me and doing what I'm meant to do. So the universe is rewarding me for doing those things. Instead of before, I was just very much of that ego brain of being like, I do want this many number of followers. I do want to hit this. I'm going to chase. I want that. And I think because I was coming from a place of lack versus a place of like receiving and gratitude, there was a major shift in my career and in my own life and journey that I'm now experiencing.
But how did they know about you? Because that's what I want to think too. I want to think that people are going to come to me for the Throwbie. And like when I first got my first,
I believe they will.
I don't know if they will. It's been out there for a while, but that's what I kept thinking. When I put my first product out there, it was on the Today Show. It wasn't the Throwbie, but I was like, okay, great. Now they'll just come. Now they see it and they said they love it on the thing, on the Today Show. And now people just come, and they didn't. And it was like a flash in the pan. So I needed to continue pursuing. And I think that more entrepreneurs like me or with a product are still fighting hard to get into the big box stores or the media or coverage. But how you say you just sat back and then, you know, all of a sudden these guys came to you. What was it that you did to bring more visibility? They couldn't have just stumbled upon you. You must have been doing something. So were you out doing more expert style things on TV? Did they know your name? Because that's how like Barbara Corcoran got her fame. She started becoming the real estate expert for like the NBC or whatever the news show was. And people knew her name. They saw her face. They knew her name. She was on TV more often.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So when I say sit back, I don't mean I literally like just sat in my office and like let it all come. I wish, okay, I'll take this. No, yeah, no. When I say I sat back, I mean I stopped being in this chasing mentality.
Yeah.
For years I had chased and would literally like turn to my PR team and be like, I need this, and this by this date. Like I want this and this. And I have like, you know, like my own demands and my own list and all these things. And they'd be like, okay, that's great. And you can want those things, but like, there's no guarantees, but we'll do our best to make those things happen. And a lot of times they wouldn't, because that's how it works with PR. There's no guarantees. We all know there's no guarantees in life, period. But especially with publicity, like there's no guarantees because there's so many different doors and people and things you have to deal with. It's not just like, you know, this happens and that happens. So that was a reality check for me. And so I think that like once I, in a sense of pulled back the like coming from a place of lack, and coming from a place of like, I must chase this and I must have this in order to like with you, right? With Throwbie, it's like, that's amazing on the Today Show. There's so many designers and brands that never get on the Today Show. So to me, it's like, okay, so you got that. So then how do you take that and leverage that to, you know, get out to the masses, even if it's not huge masses to start, but it's just a good enough audience that will start to really love your product. And I think that was a switch I had within myself too. It was like building a community versus followers. Like I don't look at the people that quote unquote follow me as just followers anymore. I look at them as my community. Many of them I've spoken to. I look at them as friends and acquaintances, people I've met in real life when I would be out and they come up to me and say, hey, I know you from your Instagram, you know, and I would connect with them, you know, like I think the more we bring it to like a real place and a more, you know, like, hey, we're connecting and having a relationship versus the ego of like, well, I'm the big box so-and-so, so I hold the keys and you're the designer and you're trying to get in. The more you can like break through those barriers, the more you're going to continue to then have them be like, oh, well, maybe I am interested in working with her because I like what she's saying and showing up to do, and then what her product does. Of course, not everyone, but you know, some people, you know what I mean? And I think for me, like when I switched into that gear and I started looking at it that way, and then also just really started like honing in on my expertise and doing more TV segments and, you know, working on more content creation around the things that I wanted, I started putting it out there, I believe, in the universe, the things I wanted to attract in, I wanted to be around and wanted to have align with me because I was doing it, that more came to me. It wasn't, of course, right away, but it took time, but it still started to come more and more. And I think that the more I felt confident in that, what I was sharing and what I was doing within myself and seeing those rewards, it was like, oh, okay, well, this is working, so I'm going to do more of this. Instead of focusing so hard on like, how do I get on there? It was like, well, I want them to notice me about this. So what am I going to do for Allie that for me that I can create to show that I potentially could align with that? And so I think for me, it was really the alignment of everything that continued to let me progress and, do well. And of course I have a PR team. Like, I invest in my business. I tell everyone, as soon as you can invest in yourself, you absolutely should. I think that we all think like, you're supposed to invest and, get, like a cute outfit or the designer bag, or which, like, don't get me wrong, I love all those things, but like, I think that we forget, myself included, that like, it's really important to invest in yourself. It's really important to invest in your business because it's you. We're always spending on everyone else, right? Like you go to the grocery store because obviously you have to get what you need in the grocery store. You go to this store to pick up that, but we do that, or at least I do. And we don't think about like anything when we just do it. It's like on automatic. But for ourselves, we like sit there and question like, oh, should I spend this? And oh, should I do that? And oh, this and oh, that.
You're 100% right. How were you able to bring in a PR team? Like you seem like you're very like you want control. It's very challenging for me too. I'm a control freak, but I can't delegate for some reason. I think they're not going to do it right, or I have to do it myself. And it makes it hard to invest in like the outsourcing of the PR or the advertising or the social media marketing or anything that can actually help me out. So I'm not going insane. But how did you just like let go or let someone else or bring someone else in to, to help you get to the next level?
Yeah. I mean, I laugh because it's still something I'm learning. It's hard. It's very hard. I mean, it's trust, it's letting go. And that was not easy for me to do. I think when I went through my postpartum depression, especially, I had to let go of everything. The universe really forced me to let go of everything. And so I had to turn it over to my PR team to handle things because I couldn't answer emails and I couldn't be in touch the way I used to be. I had to hand it over to an intern assistant because I couldn't be answering celebrities every day because I was being triggered at the time because I was going through my own, hormones and emotions. So I think I was kind of forced to like learn what that letting go was because, like, to be honest, when I was styling all the time, I would bring assistants to set and they would help with little things, but I would never give them like everything because I was too afraid. And it was very much like, but it was at my own detriment because I look back and I'm like, I could have done the 5 other jobs because I couldn't let go of the reins because I was too afraid that they would mess up. I continue to keep myself in this place of being the same. And I think a lot of times too, a lot of things, especially as entrepreneurs, we have to let go. We have to take a chance. We have to let things happen. Even if not everything's going to be good that happens, like, of course, there's going to be mistakes, and especially if it's not yourself. But we have to, because then we open up more for ourselves, be able to do more, and when you can do more, then you can go out and get more, and so it's like, you're not, in my opinion, like I know this is like very woo, whatever, but for me, like I look at the universe and I'm like, it makes sense to me that if I'm giving someone else an opportunity and letting them help me, not only am I empowering them to do more, but I'm giving myself the space and creating that for myself to be able to do more for myself. And then that's going to hopefully elevate me into doing another opportunity I wouldn't have had the time or the space to do. And because now this person is doing that for me, now maybe something else is going to happen because I let them have those, keys to that success. So I think a lot of times it's learning how to let go and, trusting that like it will figure itself out. I mean, I'm still learning that. Like even now, I have newsletters that I work on like crazy. And then I realize I don't get them out till like the end of the month. And I'm like, oh my gosh, another month went by. And like, here I go again. And I have to like turn to someone and say like, hey, can you help me with this and like get it out there for me? But that's hard for me because I do want it to be like my voice and I do want to be a part of what is being created. But I have to learn as like the CEO of my own business to like step back and say, okay, I'm going to oversee it, but like, I'm going to let you put it together, and that's a small thing, but I have a lot of those things. I have so many tedious tasks that like I haven't done that are just sitting that I'm still learning how to delegate, like I finally handed over my website for rebranding to someone I trust to have them work on it. And we're in the rebranding right now. But in the beginning, I was working on doing it. And, one of my friends said to me, when you're not in your creative brain of like genius, like we all are really good at certain things. When you're not in that creative brain of genius, it's not yours and it's just not going to be. And if you take a million courses and you do this, that, you're just wasting your time. And we all know like time is money and time is everything. Yeah. So if you're just not like honoring yourself and giving yourself that time and space to be able to say like, hey, I just am not good at doing this, I'm going to give this off to somebody else, then like you're not honoring yourself and you're not letting yourself level up. So that's something I've had to constantly come back to for myself, especially at the beginning of 2020, of like, how am I going to delegate? And look, obviously, like I don't have like millions of dollars. I don't have investors, you know, so I have a very small team of people that I trust to help me on certain hourly tasks that I need help with when they step in when I need help. And then I work with companies like Fiverr or Upwork to get like small freelancers to do little gigs here and there. You know, it's like, there are so many different companies and apps and different people who are all doing these little independent jobs that you can find help when you look for it and you trust it. But until you like let go and you like let that happen, you're just going to stay stuck where you are. It's just a fact. And I've gone through it over and over and over again. And I realize the more I do let go and let someone else step in, even if it's just 2 hours here, you know, an hour there, a newsletter here, whatever it is, it still creates the space. Maybe it's because I got to, you know, be creative and have my CEO brain on and think I'm going to make this content today because I can actually think about it, versus I can't think about it because I'm working on this right now and I'm completely consumed in it. Or I want to do this newsletter, but I can't even think about what I want to put on it because my brain is so blocked because I'm in mom, you know, life 24/7 and I can't get my brain to go there, you know? And so it's like, I mean, that's a real thing, right? Like we're both moms, we know all about that. And I think that the more I like allow that delegation, the more I surrender to that feeling and that
who helps you? Who helps you do that? Like who says, listen, Allie, it's important that you turn this over, but it's going to cost this much money. Yes, you're worth it. Don't worry. You have to invest in this. This will keep your sanity. Who's that person? Is that another form of yourself? You're telling yourself that? Okay.
Tell myself that. Yeah. Tell myself that.
You have to justify. Sometimes you have to justify the spend or justify not doing it yourself, you know?
Right. I mean, I definitely talked to my husband about about a lot because, you know, he's my partner, my best friend, and I very much, you know, go to him for everything as well. But, you know, I turn to him and I say like, you know, I'm working on this, but I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed. And I'm like, I think I'm going to get help. And he's like, well, if you think that you can afford it and it's worth it and you want to have someone help you, then do that, you know, and he helps kind of like just reaffirm what I already know, but makes me feel good to hear, okay, I should do that, you know? And then there's times where I'm just honestly being lazy and he's like, well, why don't you take a bath and like relax? And then tomorrow see like if you can get back to it, you know? And then it's like, okay, yeah, you know what? I can get back into that. I'm being more fearful than I need to be. And I think that's another thing too. My husband's been really good about teaching me to like step into the fear. Like when I was pregnant with Arlie, and for those that know me and my story, I had a C-section with Amelia, and I really wanted to have a VBAC with Arlie, vaginal birth after a C-section. And I was very intentional, and I, you know, got a chiropractor to work with me to help adjust my body. And I met with a bunch of different people in the birth community to like find out different things to do with exercise and how to be super intentional with like journaling and meditation and just all these different things. And so I brought all of that into my world. I called all of that in. And I, you know, at the end of it all, when it was getting really close to having Arlie and we're, you know, pregnant in the beginning of the pandemic and all that, and it was getting really close and I was almost at 42 weeks and it was like, okay, it's like go time. And I know they were talking about inducing me a couple of days later. And I said to my husband, I'm like, I don't want to be induced. You know, there's a chance I'm closer to a C-section if I get an induction. I really want to let my body do this on its own. And we went for a walk and he turned to me and he said, what do you think is the deal? Like, if it's you that's holding this all back, like, what do you think is going on? And I was like, well, I'm afraid to have a C-section. And he's like, okay, so you're fearful of what might happen in your birth. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, and rightfully so. Like, and he's like, no, I get that. He's like, but just talk through it. Like, you know, he's very logical like that. And I was like, okay, I'm afraid of a C-section. You know, I'm afraid to go through another traumatic experience. Like, I really have worked so hard, regardless of the pandemic in the world. Like I worked so hard to set myself, to align myself up for a VBAC. I know it's not a guarantee, but like I've worked really hard for it. And he was like, okay, but like, so you're being fearful of it. He's like, so he goes, so let's just talk through this. You end up with a C-section. You have to stay a few extra days. I maybe can't be there because of what's going on with COVID, but like, overall, we have our baby girl, we go home, we're a family of 4. So so at the end of the day, like what's the big picture? What's the big deal? And I was like, well, no, you're right. I was like, but he's like, okay. He's like, so just keep that in mind. So then we got home And I had called my doula because I had her virtual, and I told her about our conversation. And she says, well, let's do some birth processing work, so I'm telling her the story of Amelia's birth, and I'm, the whole wrong, saga of everything. And so she's like, okay, so we did this whole birth processing. I'm going to wrap this up into a pretty bow and put it to the side. And now you're going to focus on Arlie's birth and like this birth. And we didn't even know her name, but our baby girl's birth. And I was like, okay. And so she goes, what can you do to help you fear release tonight? And I was like, I don't know. What would you recommend? And she's like, well, either write it down and just throw it out, or burn it, or, flush it, or whatever resonates with you. Like, just release it.
Does that really work?
I believe it does. I mean, everybody's different.
I have a lot of things to write down and flush.
Okay.
We have a
yeah, you have to decide for you, like, yeah, you have to decide for you, like, what resonates. You know what I mean? It's like you don't want to overwhelm yourself and write a million things down. So it's like maybe the first 5 things that are coming to you that are like really bothering you right now and like really sitting heavy on your heart. That's what you write down. And then it's like, do you burn it? Do you flush it? Do you throw it out? Like whatever it is, do you freeze it? Some people freeze in their freezer, like whatever resonates to you. For me, like burning to me, I don't know, is like exhilarating. So it was like, okay, I'm going to burn it. So I wrote down like my 5 main things. It was like the C-section being like the biggest one, getting stuck in labor, being told I have to get on certain drugs, like all these things that I just didn't want for my birth. Mm-hmm. And I burned all of them. And I, and who knows, like some people say, oh, just coincidence, but the next day I went into labor, and so I do believe, because I stepped into the fear, I saw the fear, I stepped into the fear, I allowed it and saw it, and then essentially removed it from being like in my, perception of like what's blocking me. And I allowed those blockages to go. And then there it was. And I went into labor, and again, when I was pushing Arlie out, she did get stuck at the end. And I remember laying there like, oh my God, no, like my labor, I finally, I labored beautifully. Like I went into labor, my body did everything it was supposed to do. Here I am at the end. Like this went so much faster than I went with Amelia. Like, how could she be stuck? Like, no, I was so like sitting there, like devastated. And I turned to my husband and I looked at him and I said, can I have my earbuds, please? And he gave my earbuds, and I got my phone, and I had on my phone, my playlist, my meditation. And I went to one of my fear release meditations that my doula had given me. And I played it in my ears, and I shut my eyes, and I said to myself a little prayer, and I said, you can do this, and this is going to happen, but you have to, like, again, see the fear. Like, you see, you're afraid, she's stuck. Like, how are you going to handle this? You know what I mean? And I had to really get intentional in that moment of like, are you going to go into fight or flight? Like, what's it going to be right now? And so I was like, no, I'm going to fight for it. Like, this is going to happen. And, my doctor came back in, and he's like, all right, he had been like so supportive of my VBAC, and he's like, a super VBAC friendly doctor. So he was like all for it from the beginning. And he was like, okay, like we're getting close to the end. If this doesn't happen, like, I'm sorry to say, but we're going to be running into the OR because we don't have a choice. And I was like, okay, Dr. Brock, I understand. And he's like, but I'm going to help you try to make this happen. So he's like, he gets the vacuum, and he turns to me, and he's like, you're going to literally, as soon as I tell you, you're going to grab this bar, and you're literally going to push with everything you've got in you and then some to make this happen. And we're going to do this. So I shut my eyes again, I've got this music going, and I remember like blasting it in my ears, and I'm like talking to myself over and over again as I'm praying, and he's screaming, push. And I pushed and pushed. All of a sudden there she was, and she's screaming, and they put her on my chest. And I remember Jess just being like, holy shit, did that really just happen? Like, it was so surreal for me that like there she was on my chest, it was like, oh my God, this actually happened. But like that alone, like what we just discussed, like I believe when you step into like who you are and take back your power that we all have, and like release that fear and believe in ourselves, so much more can happen. But we have all these limiting beliefs and all these things around us that tell us it can't until it can. And for me, Arlie's VBAC was life-changing for me because it was so healing in so many ways, and it's changed the way I look at so many things.
Yeah. Yeah. And stress can do that to you also. It can clamp down your body. It won't allow you to move forward. It can paralyze you from taking that next step.
Yeah. In any way of your life, stress can do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you worked through it.
Yeah.
Crazy amazing. Your daughters are beautiful, and you are like a super mom, and you are doing like a million things. So not only are you, but that's because I see it, because you post it on social media all the time. Every day there's like a million stories and what's going on. I always know what's going on in your house every day. there isn't anything that I think, do you have any private time? Does your husband get annoyed that, you're posting the kids all the time or you're posting everything all the time? But you are, I do have to say also, you are 100% authentic.
Oh, thank you.
Everything you do, whether it's like a cute moment and you guys are all dressed up and you're doing that thing, or whether it's you're laying in bed and you're just basically telling the phone or the camera, like, I'm exhausted. Today was a really, really rough day.
Yeah.
It's just all out there.
So true. It is. And thank you for that. I try to be as real as possible, especially in a space that's hard to be real. And there are days for sure where Justin's like, oh my God, could you put the phone down? Like, we're having dinner or we're watching a movie. Do you really have to have your phone? Like, I definitely have to check myself. He checks me. But I think overall I've gotten better about being intentional. It's funny. Everybody says that, like, oh, I see everything. And I'm like, you don't though. I'm glad I make you feel like you do because it's part of my job, but I'm not on there, like 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? Like, I'm on for a few hours and I get off and I get back on, and, I show bits and pieces throughout the day of what's happening. But then there's some days like yesterday where I just didn't sign on at all. I got on, I think at like 6 o'clock last night and did a couple stories, and that was it, because it was a busy day and I needed to focus on my girls and my husband, and we were having a family day, and so I'm learning too that, like, it's okay some days not to show up, giving myself that grace that I am just human and I can sometimes only do so much.
Yeah. Would you take a break again? Would you take like a 2-month break again?
Not right now in my career, because I feel like that right now wouldn't be beneficial in what I'm doing, because I am doing so much where I need to share it in what I'm doing as far as like the brands and the partnerships. But down the road, if it was something that came up where I felt like I needed to, I might, I mean, I feel like I've been better about taking breaks on like stories. Like, I used to show up in my stories 10 to 12 hours a day, nonstop filming. And that was like exhausting. And my phone battery would die 3 times a day. Like, it was like a lot, I remember like on my screen time on my phone, it would be like, you've been on for 18 hours today. Like, oops, it's like, that's a lot, I probably shouldn't do that. Now my
awake 18 hours today.
I know, right? Like, my screen time has gone down like quite a bit, and I see that and I recognize that, and I notice I feel better too. And so, a lot of days, like, I don't go on for a bunch of hours, and I'll just say to myself, like, you know what, I just didn't show up today. Or I also allow myself to like record like what's going on with my family and post it later. I used to be someone who had everything had to be instantaneous in the moment as it's happening. And I've been learning more and more that it's okay for that not to be the case and not to be the truth, and to post later on and to truly be present and be submerged in the moment, and then post after that moment has passed.
That's good. Do you listen to the naysayers? What do you do with comments? What do you do with people that are just like judging you or
they're so much fun. If it ain't cute, put it on mute. That's kind of what I live by, to be honest. Like, because everyone has something to say, they'll have something to say after this interview. It's part of my job. It's part of being in the public eye. It's part of, people write not nice things on my podcast reviews. I mean, it's part of the job, and I think that you have to just kind of realize that and know that. And I used to have it beat me up. I used to get really upset. I used to cry to my husband, and Justin would say, well, the higher you climb, the more you can fall. And so people are trying to get you to fall, I always remember that when he would say that to me, because it's true. It's like and then you should really check in with yourself and say, like, I am climbing, I am doing something good, or people wouldn't be coming and saying something, or they wouldn't be taking their time to troll or say whatever they want to say. And they want to bring me down. And what does that say about them? They should be focusing on elevating themselves, but instead they're focusing on bringing me down. So you have to focus on yourself. And so I think just because I've gotten more intentional, and to being a very busy mom, like, as long as it's not affecting like my family, and it's not affecting like my real world of like what I do with my family and like my girls, like I can't be bothered, even things.
What if it is your family? What if all of a sudden, like, your dad is like, hey, Allie, I think you need to take a break from, whatever it is you're doing and focus on the kids, or, like it's a cousin who says, I don't know how you're balancing this. I think you're not doing right by your kids or your husband or whatever. Someone who all of a sudden judges, and they're not just a random comment, but they're your family. And how do you handle it?
I have to have boundaries. I've had those moments. I have to have boundaries. I just tell them that I'm doing what I need to do, and this is my career, and you don't have to follow me, and you don't have to subscribe to what I do, but this is my career, and this is my job, and this is how I show up in the world, and how I make money, and what I and also I believe not just what I make money, but how my purpose and what I share and what I do. And I believe that God and the universe for me, like, wouldn't have put me in this position if I wasn't meant to be in it, because I wasn't always in this position. And so, I think that for me, I've had those moments where I've had to turn to my own family and say, hey, look, I know it's not comfortable all the time, but you have to understand and honor me, that this is my space and this is what I'm doing. And so you have to create those boundaries. And that's something I've learned too. It's really not easy, is like constantly honoring yourself and creating boundaries, even with family and friends and people you don't want to, but you have to, because if you don't, then you won't continue to further evolve, and you'll stop yourself once again, because those limiting beliefs, if they're not coming from the outside and they're coming from people in your own camp, then, unless it's my husband who says to me, like he's said before, like, I was going to post this one picture for my VBAC, and he's like, that's a little much. Why don't I take a different one? And like, I value his opinion, and I value us being obviously husband and wife, and that didn't make him feel comfortable. So I was like, okay, out of respect for him, that I won't post this, and I'll change the photo, or I'll blur out this part that he doesn't like, or whatever it may be. And I'll say, what do you think? And he'll say, yeah, I think that's fine. Then I'll post it. But, I hate to say it, but it was my parents, much as I love them, like, I'm a grown woman, and unless I'm doing something detrimental to hurt myself or my family, or something like really like health hazardous, I don't feel it's something I have to personally, I can listen to what they have to say, but I don't have to do what they have to say.
And it's a generational thing too. There was a time where women didn't wear pants, so maybe the first woman, the first daughter that wore pants, maybe her mom was like, I think you're doing a wrong job by
of course. Right, exactly. Like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't the norm, And so I think that, like you said, like, it's just, it all changes, right? We're all evolving. There's so much change, especially now. Like, and I don't think, in my opinion, there's ever really any rules. I think those are limiting beliefs that society gives us. I think we choose our own destinies. We choose what works and what we subscribe to. And that's what's most important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, you do have your priorities straight, family first.
I try to.
So far,
so good. Moments like everyone else, I'm human, but yeah, I try to.
But speaking of like, the picture that your husband said, maybe don't post that one, and I'll blur this out. You guys were on that reality show. Talk to me, like, just for a snippet. I know that you have to go, and I have to go. I have like dinner waiting as well. You're West Coast, I'm East Coast. Talk to me about you guys literally stripped down. The name of the show was called Stripped. Is that?
Yeah.
Was that the name of the show?
On Bravo, Stripped. Yeah.
God. How did you
very intense.
And these are like exercise of like, you gave up everything. So you gave up your phone for 2.5 months just to do it. And because you felt that it would be healthier, but you gave up all of your possessions, every single thing, including the clothes on your back, both you and your husband.
Yeah, it was quite intense. Not going to lie.
How did you guys come to that show even?
Well, so long story short, obviously, for those that know me, or if you don't know me and you probably look up my career, you'll see I've been a celebrity stylist for quite some time, and I've worked with a lot of celebrities in the Bravo and E space. And so those producers knew me. And so when they were casting for this, they had actually asked me to do a fashion show they were casting for that didn't end up playing out, because, a million projects in Hollywood don't actually play out, even though it looks like they do. And
they're probably really good also.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the thing is, like, people have to realize, like, so many things don't get greenlit, and projects just don't happen, and so there were many that I was up for, but they just didn't happen, and just didn't happen in my career. And so then this came through. Oh yeah. And then this came through, and it was like, oh, hey, you want to do this? And I was like, no, why the heck would I want to have my stuff taken away? And they were like, that'll be good for you. We think it'd be fun to watch you as a stylist have all your shit taken away. And I was like, no, but I'm good, thanks. And I tell my PR team, and I tell my manager and my husband, everybody was like, no, you should do it. And I was like, excuse me, what? And they were like, you should do it. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it, and they were like, I think it'd be really good for you. Like, it'd be a good reality check for you to like get away from all the things that you do all the time to focus on yourself. And so that was kind of how I ended up being like, okay, I guess I'll do this. And my husband then was asked to do it with me, because they loved that he was so like, don't give a shit in my own, zone kind of thing. And so then he ended up doing it with me, which was honestly a blessing, because I think us doing it together, we became quite the team, and I learned a lot about myself and my marriage, and we ended up getting pregnant after filming. And I think that like all those things were not coincidences. I think that the universe again created a space for me to be able to get into, you know, that situation with my husband and be able to honor us and be together and focus on us. And I was actually very healing for our marriage and for myself personally, and to be able to become a mom. And it just it was not what anything of what I expected, to be honestly. I thought I was going to do it just to like, you know, do this show and like whatever, I'll be on Bravo, and just wasn't that. And I feel like, you know, the universe and everything had other plans
you
for
guys
me.
were naked. You were naked. How many people were you in front of? Because all of your stuff.
Well, it's just a couple producers, obviously. I mean, the world, different story, but you know, as far as filming,
you and your husband were feeling okay about that. He was all good.
No, he was fine actually. He thought it was funny, and he kept messing with them, and he would just kind of walk around and walk up to them and they'd be like, you know, and he'd be like, hey, what's up? You know, they were using like the boom mic, and he was actually like sticking him, you know, himself up in the air and was like, hey, you know, and it was like, oh my God. And they were like, oh my God, please stop. And he was like, isn't that funny? Because you're trying to like boo, you know, whatever. But yeah, but no, I was not. I was hiding in a corner. The first 2 days. I kept taking like the tarp off the ground of filming and putting it over me, and they kept yelling at me and telling me I couldn't do that. And I said, well, it's on the ground here. And they're like, yeah, but in reality, it doesn't exist. You're breaking the fourth wall. And I was like, I don't care. I'm not comfortable. You know, I was like really pissed. So I did not do well with that. So that was why, for anyone that watched the show or does go back and watch the show, I got a dress as my first item, because you get one item back a day. So I got a dress the first day because I couldn't deal without any kind of clothing. I needed something. So no, it was very vulnerable for me. And I think that. What
was your husband's first item?
He got us the couch back because he wanted us to be able to like sit and sleep and like function like human beings.
Oh, that's good. He brought comfort back, and you brought coverage back.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And he always, like, everything he picked, it was like, oh, the toothpaste, like he did everything realistic, and I did everything like on the surface. It was like, oh, I'll get back my lipstick, I'll get back my shoes. Like I got back like things that like really weren't like, you know, good big picture. And he was like, we need this to survive. You know, I was like,
do it all over again. What if you were to start from scratch? I think you would probably still want the dress though. Like first,
for sure, 100% want the dress. But then I'd probably wait on the phone. I'd probably wait on the material things. I'd probably do things that were more like for us as a unit versus like self-serving for Allie.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Was there like a low point, or was there just like, when did the fun kick in?
I don't know if it was ever fun.
What?
I don't know if it was ever fun.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, the low point was probably when they sent me to the red carpet. For those that watch the show or go back, they still have that moment highlighted everywhere. I was crying at the red carpet because they sent me the red carpet for an event, and it was a huge red carpet event where I had styled a bunch of clients, and not only did I have to see them, but I had to show up in this little like knit dress, no makeup on, hair hadn't been washed in days, and they not only made me walk the carpet that way, but they made me interview that way, and it lives on Getty Images. Like literally, like the photo is everywhere from that night. That was a very low point, because for me, it wasn't about the fact that I was just so raw. It was about the fact that I'd worked so fucking hard on my career for so long and been on point everywhere I went, to have that photo go everywhere and go viral and this and that, to be like, oh, here. I mean, they even made me post it on my Instagram. Like it was like a whole like experience of like, what does this feel like for you? And it was hard.
Yeah. Which is interesting, because you kind of strip yourself down when you're doing your own videos, but having someone strip you down where you're not willing to do it, you're still building your profile, your persona.
Yeah, all that one also too. Like back then when I would do my stories and I do my social media, I didn't ever show up raw. I showed up full glam. I showed up dressed up. I showed up, you know, so when I became a mom, that was when I started showing up raw. That was when I had the reality check of like, I can't get myself together every day, especially in the beginning of motherhood. So that's why I think I actually struggled so hard with showing up on social, because I was used to showing up a certain way, you know? So it was, that moment was very intense for me. I would say that. And just when they would ask us questions, like my husband and I, of like why I was struggling with wanting to have a baby and why I wasn't in the place to, it was very emotional for me to have those conversations around the fact that I wasn't ready, that I felt like I was giving up my career, that my husband had been waiting for so long and I was making him wait. It was, you know, it's typical Bravo. They wanted drama, but it was our lives. So it was emotional and it was very heavy for me.
Yeah. And how do you feel now about motherhood?
I love motherhood.
Have you given up
I
your
honestly
career?
I would have never thought I would have loved it. I would definitely give up my career in a heartbeat for my girls. I mean, I'm grateful that I can do all of it, not every day, but do it all, you know, in some capacity. And I'm grateful that the girls get to be a part of a lot of it. And that makes it a lot easier in my career. But being their mom and getting to evolve and learn from them and show up every day the way I do and how much they teach me, these little girls, it's wild. I mean, I feel so grateful that, you know, I was blessed with these two. So I love motherhood.
Do you feel like you're setting the same example that your dad set for you? You're showing them like how to get in, get it done.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, Amelia, you know, obviously my 9-month-old doesn't get it, but Amelia being almost 3, she watches me and she'll say, "Oh, you're getting on a podcast? Oh, what are you doing, mama?" Like, you know, and she sees me journaling and we do affirmations in the mirror every day. And, you know, I try to practice what I preach, you know, not every day, but I overall really work on it. So yeah. I hope so. Yeah.
And I think you're going to teach her to be tough and go get what you want. And, you know,
yeah,
if you can't get it, don't cry about it. And
right. And know that you're confident in what you do. You know, confidence is your best accessory. And, you know, anyone listening, you know, it is, you know, when you can own that, you can do anything.
Yeah.
The only person stopping you is you.
Yeah, that is true. That is very true. I learned a lot from everything that you just had to say. Your whole story. I'm like, I need to hire someone. I need to like let some of this stuff go. I definitely learned.
Start with journaling. Start with writing down like the 5 things that are like really weighing on you the most right now and you feel like you can't like release and you feel like are holding you back. Start with those 5 things and then decide, flush it, burn it, whatever resonates, but like do that and then see what happens.
When you journal, do you journal in like a real journal with pen and everything?
I always have it next to me. I always use pen. Yeah, I never do anything on the computer. I love this journal. This is Commanding Life. It's one of my favorites because it has like you will heal. Like it has like, it tells you that like affirmations. It tells you like, I invite into my life. So it gives you a little bit of something. Like when I was first journaling, I wasn't good at just journaling. So I needed like prompts to like think about it. So I like that this has like different prompts and like tells you different things. And, you know, at the end of the day, you sign off and you say, tomorrow I will do better by, and you sign it sincerely, your name. So you're like, affirming to yourself and you're holding yourself accountable. So that's been like really helpful for me. So I actually really love this journal.
That's really good. I'm going to actually buy that because whenever I journal, I remember I would always journal when I was younger and even when I gave birth but I always found that I was writing all the negative stuff that happened. Like today was a bad day. You know, I had a fight with Vlad.
But maybe you needed to get it out, you know, like we have to also release, you know, I mean, like you have to, I do that too. Like I do write inspirational things. I do write what I'm grateful for, but if something's bothering me or I'm going through something or I'm, you know, trying to move through what's happening, like I have to write it out because we have to release it in some way, right? Because if you don't, it just sits and everything is energy. And so when you let that stagnant energy sit, it just takes over you. You know, it's like what you were saying with stress, it like paralyzes you. It's the same thing with everything. It's like, I think a lot of times people wonder like why they get super sick or why they can't work through something or whatever. And sure, there's extenuating circumstances, but I also believe that so much of our body dictates that. And so when you're not honoring that and you're not releasing those stresses, when you're not releasing those feelings, it manifests in some way. I mean, I experienced that with my postpartum depression with Amelia, like when I was holding everything in and I wasn't releasing and I wasn't honoring myself or respecting myself. And I just kept pushing myself. My whole face broke out with cystic acne. And I've like barely had acne my entire life. Like I've had like little bits here and there when I was, you know, like a teenager, and it broke out to the point of like, even my husband was like, okay, I love you and you're beautiful no matter what, but like, it's really bad. Like I'm concerned for you because your face is like covered. And it was like something I'd never seen before. And I remember just like, you know, being so upset and I was, oh my God, I was devastated. Like because you couldn't even cover it up because it was just cystic. So it was all over. And I went to of course, in Los Angeles, I went to like a healer, and, you know, they worked on my face and she was a esthetician, but also a healer. So she worked on my face, but then she also like did a lot of like, you know, prayers and just releases. And we did different conversations around what I was releasing. And between that and then months later of continuing to do my own work and doing all the journaling and releasing all the emotions and being in therapy, that's when everything started to resolve. And I believe that came from releasing all the things that were behind it that were manifesting into my face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree. I also had some physical, manifestations, whatever you want to call it. My chest tightened, and I thought, like, for 2 days, I think I'm having a heart attack, or maybe it's COVID, or, the psychosomatic nature of what was just physically happening to my body was stress. It was just stress.
Exactly. And people let that take over, so I think when we, again, come back to our own power and tap into like who we are and our own internal medicine of the body and our mind, and like realize like how much of that, if we release it and believe in ourselves, like so much can resolve itself. Sure. Okay. Some things may not, but I believe a lot can.
Yeah. So how is LA changed right now? Are you?
It's been locked down. It's like a joke. It's been locked down for like a year now. I mean, we're open in a sense of like restaurants, whatever, but then it's only outdoor, and it's a joke, honestly.
It is crazy. Are you going to move to Austin? Everyone from California is moving.
We're not going to go to Austin, but I think we are going to get out of here. We're not publicly announcing anything yet, but we're looking into making a move. We'll see.
Okay, cool. Come back east.
I know everybody says
almost over.
Winter's almost over.
Yeah, we're actually looking to move to Austin. We have to actually go to the area.
That's awesome.
But eventually we'll move from Jersey also within a year or so.
Yeah, there you go. And put it out there, right? Put it out there in the universe. When within a year, make your move. Yeah.
All right, Allie, this was so good. Thank you. I'm glad that we got a chance. We had to cancel it once before, and I'm glad we made it work.
Yes, same. Thank you for having me. It was a great conversation.
Yes. And you and I text each other often enough, and I can't wait to see what else is in store for you and for me. And Justin's a great husband. He sounds like a wonderful person. And thank goodness I have a similar being here, because Vlad is also my anchor, and he's
I love that.
Very honest.
It's needed, right? It's needed. Yeah,
it is.
And you had a lot of good things coming for Throwbee. Throwbee is an amazing product, and anyone that's listening, get yourself a Throwbee, because it is so cozy. Like, you will live in it. My husband lives in his. He puts it on literally every day he gets home from, like, when he goes golfing. He's like, oh, I want to get cozy, and I put mine on at night when I don't want to be in a robe anymore and I don't want to be in my clothes. Like, it's awesome. So
thank you for saying that. And what's the name of your podcast? It's called Everything.
Yeah, Everything with Allie Levine. And it's literally everything from spiritual to wellness, well-being, motherhood, everything real and raw. Come and get raw with me.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. I will let you back to your family.
Thank you.
Good seeing you. All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.